Hi there, my friend, and welcome back. Today we are going to be taking a nice close look at what is covered in the Abeka's 8th grade arithmetic curriculum. So let's go ahead and dig in. So in Abeka's 8th grade arithmetic course, it's going to be pre-algebra. And this is the student work text. And this right here is the book that has all the quizzes and tests. Now, this year, as I've shared before, we are doing, once again, the Academy. So this is going to be a video course that he is going to be taking. For last year and the year before that, my husband pretty much took the lead with the math. And this year we decided that, with everything going on, the video lessons are going to be best for our family. So like in the previous video, I'm going to be sharing with you all what is going to be covered in this particular grade. And one of the things you're going to be noticing is that the topics are very similar to previous years. Since it's a spiral approach, they touched on some of these things in the previous years. Now it just goes in deeper. So in this book, you are going to see there's a table of contents, and then it shows you how to use the textbook, and then what a typical lesson would look like. Okay, so I'm gonna go over that with you, and then we'll look at the back too. So the contents. Chapter 1 will be Foundations of Arithmetic. That's place value, number classification, factors, exponents, finding greatest common factor and lowest common multiple, fractions, ratios, and proportions, fraction arithmetic, fraction decimal equivalents, percentage basics, finding the percent and the base, and applications of percents. So I know this has been something that has been thoroughly covered in previous years, as well as the measurements and foundations of algebra, orders of operations, properties of arithmetic, adding and subtracting, signed numbers, etc. Chapter 4 will be equations and inequalities. Foundations of geometry is chapter 5. Chapter 6 is area and volume. Chapter 7, graphing on the Cartesian plane. 8, probability and statistics. 9 is statistical representations. 10, polynomial arithmetic. 11, radicals and trigonometry. So they are going to be doing trigonometry in 8th grade. And 12 is systems of equations. Now, when you look at what does a typical lesson look like, here it just, in chapter 1, Foundations of Arithmetic, 1.1 is that particular lesson that they're doing. 1 is the chapter, 0.1 is the lesson, okay? So chapter 1, lesson 1. So the first lesson is place value, rounding, and arithmetic. It just shows you here the instruction, okay? Addition, subtraction, and it gives you examples over here, all of this. And then is the practice. So for this case, identifying the place value, underline the value of, identify the value of each underlined digit, rounding, and then adding over here too, and then divide, write each remainder as indicated. Some word problems over here. And then here is the homework, if you choose to have your students do the homework. So 1 through 21 is just homework practice. And typically these have to be done in a separate piece of notebook paper because there's not enough space in here for you to actually do it. And actually, as a matter of fact, this says work problems on notebook paper. Okay, so if you are looking on how to differentiate, based on your student's need, like if your child is very quick to pick it up and they don't need that much additional practice, you're going to notice, like, for the first ones, you can have them do all the even or all the odd numbers. I know that in high school, or in school, back when I was a kid, that's how they used to assign them. Or you can choose to have them do based on what their needs are, if they're struggling with a specific type of concept, do all the exercises for that specific concept, and then that way they use more of their brain power for that, and then just maybe do 1 or 2 exercises on a particular concept that they're really strong at, right? So that's what it looks like. And then 1.2 is number classification. That's the second lesson. That's the lesson for the next day. And this is what that looks like. Okay. Again, same format. You have the lesson, you have the practice right here, and then you have the homework. And it follows the same throughout. So if we go to unit form, solving inequalities, same thing over here. Okay, so it's a thick book, but it's a thick book because there is a lot of instruction in it. And then they have the practice, they have, the homework. In this particular case, there's a review right here. Okay. And then towards the back. Okay, now we are in unit 7. So let me go back over here. 7.5, direct variation. All right, here are the grids. So, and then if we go to the back, after all this, there's usually some additional practice in the back. Let's see, final review right there. And then this is additional practice for each chapter, okay? So here's final review of all the chapters, and then final review B, and then final review C, final review on each one. And then if we go over here, there's final review on chapter 11, and the reference section is just, formulas, measurements, what typical math books usually come with at the end: properties and rules, symbols, transformations, and then there's the glossary at the end with the words and their definitions. Okay, so that is what's in pre-algebra for 8th grade. And then the quizzes and test book. So you're going to notice, if you've done Abeka before, again, the format is very similar. So this is quiz 1, and quiz 1 is based on, 1.1 and 1.2, which is lesson 1 and lesson 2. You gotta write the correct answer, put an X in the columns of all numbers that fit each classification: neutral, whole, integer, rational, and irrational. Okay, there. Quiz 2, 1.3 to 1.4. So every couple of lessons, quiz 3, 1.5 to 1.6, there's a quiz. Okay. And then test 1 is all on chapter 1. So it's comprehensive based on the entirety of the unit. Okay. And then quiz 6 now moves to sections 2.1 and 2.2. So you can kind of see what it all goes. And I love this because it's like all peppered through. So when I'm thinking of organizing my son's binder, I just simply tear out, pull, hole punch, and stick it in there. I don't have to go through and pepper in the tests in order. So this is great. Okay. Similar format. And that's the one thing that is really important to me, and like why I'm not a big curriculum switcher. I wanted to find a curriculum that fit my family, and I did not want to deviate from it, because switching a curriculum, that means you have to learn a whole new style of things. And what I've learned from my family is that consistency is really important. So this is familiar. That's not something that we have to learn new this year, this format. Yes, the information and the concepts that we're learning are new. However, the format on everything is familiar. So it just makes it a little bit easier for us as the homeschooling parents and for the kiddos at home to just have what they're familiar with from previous years. Okay. So that is what pre-algebra looks like for Abeka's 8th grade arithmetic.